Hey, warrior. You think you are a good person. You say yes when you actually want to say no. You bite your tongue when someone crosses the line. You exhaust yourself making sure everyone around you is comfortable, happy, and never upset with you. You call this kindness. You pride yourself on being the bigger person, the peacemaker, the one who keeps everything running smoothly. But I need you to listen to me very carefully right now because you are lying to yourself. You are not kind. You are weak. You are terrified of conflict and desperate for approval. And you have disguised this cowardice as a moral virtue. Think about the heavy, suffocating exhaustion you feel at the end of every day. Think about the late nights staring at the ceiling, replaying conversations, wondering if you accidentally offended someone, or feeling the bitter sting of resentment because no one matches your level of sacrifice. You drive miles out of your way. You give up your hard-earned PTO. You burn yourself to the ground just to keep other people warm. And you secretly hate them for not appreciating it enough. This is the trap of the good person. It is a psychological prison where your entire sense of self-worth is dictated by how much of a doormat you can be for the people around you. You smile and take on that extra project at work. You loan out $50 you know you will never see again. You spend 3 hours on the phone absorbing a friend's toxic drama while your own life is falling apart. And why do you do it? Because you are addicted to being liked. But here is the brutal Stoic truth that will shatter this illusion. Your boundaryless generosity is actually a form of hidden selfishness. You are manipulating people into liking you by being overly accommodating. 2,000 years ago, the greatest minds of the ancient world understood this dangerous trap. They knew that equating people-pleasing with goodness is a fatal flaw of the human ego. Epictetus, a man who survived the brutal realities of Roman slavery to become a legendary philosopher, taught that our greatest suffering comes from trying to control things completely outside of our power. When you twist yourself into knots trying to manage other people's opinions of you, you are fighting a war you are guaranteed to lose. You are handing the keys to your emotional stability over to strangers, colleagues, and toxic family members. Marcus Aurelius, an emperor who possessed the absolute power to destroy anyone who crossed him, chose kindness. But his kindness was rooted in ironclad strength, not a fragile need for validation. In this video, we are going to tear down the weak, people-pleasing habits that are draining your life force. We will explore the unforgiving, powerful truths of Stoicism to show you exactly why you have been living wrong and how to fix it. We are going to build a fortress around your mind. I will show you how to establish boundaries of steel without becoming cold or bitter, and how to reclaim your time, your energy, and your self-respect. True kindness is not about being a pushover. It is a choice made from a position of absolute power and internal clarity. By the end of this journey, you will understand the fundamental difference between the fake kindness born of fear and the genuine kindness born of Stoic strength. You will stop being a doormat and start becoming a warrior of your own mind. It is time to wake up, look in the mirror, and face the harsh reality of your own actions. Because until you find the courage to be disliked, you will never truly be free. Let us look closely at the psychology of why you cannot say no. It is not because you possess a heart of pure gold, or because you are a saint walking among mortals. You do it because you are infected with a deeply ingrained disease called people-pleasing. Somewhere along the line, you learned that keeping the peace was safer than standing your ground. You convinced yourself that if you just give a little more of your time, a little more of your energy, and a little more of your money, people will finally validate you. But every single time you say yes to them when you desperately want to say no, you are saying no to yourself. You are trading your own life force, your own precious hours on this earth, for a fleeting smile from someone who likely would not walk a single mile for you. The ancient Stoics understood this psychological trap perfectly. Epictetus warned us that if you try to have it both ways, trying to be loved by your old friends and remain the same person while also trying to become a better person, you will be ruined. You simply cannot serve two masters. Imagine a man who works 50 hours a week at a demanding corporate job. When his lazy coworker asks him to cover a massive project on his only day off, he immediately agrees. When a toxic relative calls at 2 a.m. to complain about the exact same drama for the 100th time, he stays on the line and sacrifices his sleep. He drives 10 miles out of his way in heavy traffic just to pick up a coffee for a boss who does not even know his last name. He thinks he is being a loyal friend and a dedicated team player, but internally, he is burning with bitter resentment. His stomach is in knots. His stress levels are skyrocketing, and he feels completely hollow. He is not acting out of genuine virtue or moral strength. He is acting out of a desperate, paralyzing fear of being disliked. The Stoics would look at this man and tell him the brutal truth: he is living as a slave. He might not wear physical chains on his wrists, but his chains are forged from his own insatiable need for external validation. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to stop being pulled like a puppet by every impulse and by the expectations of others. When you agree to do things you hate just to avoid an awkward conversation, you are handing the strings of your mind over to the crowd. You are completely abandoning the inner citadel of your own soul. As the Stoics observed, it is a strange paradox that we love ourselves more than anyone else. Yet we value the opinions of others more than our own estimation of ourselves. You must realize that this compulsive accommodation is not kindness. It is a defense mechanism. True kindness requires a conscious, deliberate choice. If you do not possess the courage to say no, then your yes means absolutely nothing at all. It is just an automatic reflex born from cowardice and a lack of self-respect. You are treating your own life as if it is worthless, tossing your time away to anyone who asks, while you would fiercely guard your bank account from thieves. But your time and your energy are the only currencies you can never earn back. It is time to dissect this disease and understand that your nice guy routine is actually a manipulation tactic designed to control how others perceive you. You are trying to buy their affection because you lack the strength to stand alone. Seneca observed that we are incredibly stingy when it comes to protecting our property. Yet we are reckless squanderers when it comes to our time, the one thing it is actually right to be stingy about. You guard your home with locks and security systems, but you leave the front door of your mind wide open for anyone to walk in and track their muddy boots all over your peace of mind. Every time you bend over backward to accommodate an unreasonable request, you reinforce a terrible habit. You train your own brain to believe that the needs of other people are superior to your own. You diminish your own worth. The psychology of the people pleaser is rooted in the false belief that you are responsible for the emotional state of other human beings. If someone is upset, you immediately assume it is your job to fix it. If someone is disappointed, you assume it is your fault. But this violates the most fundamental rule of Stoicism, the dichotomy of control. You do not control the emotions, reactions, or judgments of other people. You only control your own intentions and your own actions. By trying to manage how others feel about you, you are playing a game you are mathematically guaranteed to lose. You exhaust yourself running on a treadmill of endless favors, hoping that one day you will reach a point where everyone is finally satisfied. That day will never come. The world will always ask for more. You have to stop viewing your boundaries as a sign of hostility. Setting a boundary is not an act of aggression. It is an act of supreme self-preservation and fundamental self-respect. Until you cure yourself of this disease of needing to be liked, you will remain a secondary character in the story of your own life, constantly adjusting your script to please a demanding and ungrateful audience. The moment you decide to push back and set a boundary, you will inevitably feel a suffocating wave of panic. Your heart will race, your palms will sweat, and every ingrained instinct in your nervous system will scream at you to apologize, to backpedal, and to surrender your ground just to make the tension disappear. This is the exact moment you must deploy the most powerful psychological weapon in the Stoic arsenal, a foundational concept that Epictetus called the dichotomy of control. Epictetus brilliantly divided the entire world into two massive categories: things that are entirely up to us and things that are not up to us at all. Under our complete control are our thoughts, our impulses, our desires, and our own direct actions. Everything else, including our physical bodies, our property, our societal reputation, and most importantly, the opinions and emotional reactions of other human beings, belongs firmly to the category of things we do not control. When you politely tell your coworker that you cannot work on their project this weekend, or when you inform a demanding relative that you cannot lend them $500, they might get extremely angry. They might label you as selfish or give you the silent treatment for weeks. Here is where the fake nice guy always crumbles. The chronic people pleaser falsely believes that if the other person is upset, the boundary must have been a moral failure. But the Stoic knows with absolute certainty that the other person's anger is completely outside of their jurisdiction. You cannot magically reach into someone else's mind and flip a switch to make them perfectly understand your perspective. As Epictetus taught his students, it is not the external events that disturb people, but the judgments they form concerning those events. If your relative chooses to view your healthy, reasonable boundary as a vicious personal attack, that is their own false judgment at work, and it is destroying their own peace of mind, not yours. Think back to the exhausted corporate worker we discussed earlier. Imagine he finally looks at his lazy coworker and simply says no. he will not cover the extra shift. The coworker huffs, rolls his eyes, and storms off to complain to the rest of the office. The untrained mind immediately wants to chase after him, offering a desperate compromise to smooth things over and avoid being the bad guy. But a mind trained in Stoic philosophy stands firm and observes the situation objectively. Seneca reminds us that we are tormented much more by our own thoughts than by actual facts. The agonizing guilt you feel right after saying no is just a phantom, a lingering echo of your old, cowardly habit of trying to manage the emotions of the entire universe. You must actively confront that harsh impression and tell it that it is nothing to you. You must constantly repeat to yourself that their disappointment is absolutely not your responsibility. Your only duty is to maintain your own moral integrity, to act with justice, and to protect your own life force. You are solely responsible for the respectful delivery of your message, not for how it is ultimately received by another deeply flawed human being. Saying no is not an act of cruelty. It is a fundamental declaration of your own inherent worth. When you finally stop trying to control their reaction, you instantly reclaim all the mental energy you used to waste on anxiety and endless overthinking. You must build an impenetrable fortress of rational thought, where you realize that handing over your peace of mind to someone else's temper tantrum is the ultimate act of self-betrayal. If you truly want to stop being weak, you have to willingly embrace the profound discomfort of letting other people be severely disappointed in you. You have to let them be angry. You have to let them completely misunderstand your motives. As long as your choice is rooted in fairness and deep self-respect. The emotional fallout of the crowd is strictly none of your concern. The weapon of refusal is forged in the fire of this liberating realization. It serves as an iron shield that fiercely protects your most valuable asset, which is your finite time on this earth, and as a sword that cuts cleanly through the manipulative expectations of a demanding world. You must practice this daily until saying no becomes a quiet, unshakable demonstration of your internal power. Once you stop operating out of fear and start enforcing your boundaries, you will inevitably ask yourself what it actually means to be a kind person. If being a chronic people pleaser is weak, does being strong mean you have to become a cold, heartless jerk who only cares about himself? Absolutely not. This is where we must draw a massive, impenetrable line between being nice and being genuinely kind. Being nice is almost always a transactional strategy used by the weak to avoid conflict and buy favor from the crowd. Genuine kindness, however, is a profound expression of absolute strength. It is a deliberate choice made by someone who does not need anything from you in return. To understand this paradigm shift, we must look directly to the personal diaries of Marcus Aurelius. As the emperor of the Roman Empire, he was arguably the most powerful human being on the planet. He did not need to please anyone. He could have any person executed with a simple wave of his hand. Yet, he dedicated his life to being a deeply kind and forgiving man. But his kindness was fundamentally different from the frantic, anxiety-ridden people-pleasing that you have been practicing for years. Marcus Aurelius believed that human beings were designed by nature to help one another, but he vehemently rejected the idea that we should ever seek gratitude, recognition, or a return of the favor. He wrote that some people, when they do you a kindness, immediately demand the payment of gratitude. Others might not demand it out loud, but they secretly record the favor in their mental ledger, looking at you as their personal debtor. But the highest type of person, Marcus observed, is like a vine that produces a beautiful cluster of grapes. Once the vine has produced its fruit, it asks for absolutely nothing more. It simply moves on to bear more grapes the next season, just as a fleet horse runs its race, or a bee makes its honey, or an eye fulfills its purpose simply by seeing. The eye does not demand a salary for its vision. When you do a good deed and then feel deeply resentful because the person did not thank you profusely enough, or because they did not return the favor when you needed it months later, you are proving that your initial act was not kindness at all. It was a covert business contract. You were trying to manipulate them into owing you. The Stoic warrior does not operate this way. When a true Stoic helps a friend move into a new apartment across town, or covers a shift for a struggling coworker, or lends $50 to a family member in need, they do it simply because it is the right and virtuous thing to do. The noble act itself is the entire reward. If the recipient is utterly ungrateful, it does not disturb the peace of mind of the Stoic for a single second, because the Stoic never attached their happiness to the reaction of the recipient. This is the ultimate power of Stoic philosophy. When your kindness is completely detached from the expectation of a reward, you become emotionally untouchable. You are no longer a victim of ungrateful people because you have stopped needing their validation to feel good about yourself. You are acting from a fortress of internal abundance, rather than a pathetic state of emotional starvation. You are kind simply because it is your nature to be kind, and you have fortified your character so thoroughly that no amount of external ingratitude can ever turn you bitter. This requires immense, unshakable courage. It requires you to look at a chaotic, selfish world and decide that you will maintain your moral integrity regardless of how anyone else behaves. That is not weakness. That is the absolute highest form of human strength. And it is the only real path to genuine, lasting freedom from the exhausting game of seeking approval. But we are about to reach the most critical part of this journey, and it contains a profound realization that is the exact reason why almost everyone fails to break free from this exhausting cycle without even realizing it. You must brace yourself for a brutal psychological truth. You need to understand and admit that what you have been calling your generous, accommodating nature is actually a highly sophisticated form of emotional manipulation. You do not say yes to every request because you are overflowing with selfless, unconditional love for humanity. You say yes because you are trying to purchase insurance against abandonment. You are using your favors, your time, and your money to bribe people into keeping you around and speaking highly of you. The ancient Stoics were masters at dissecting human motives, and they had zero tolerance for this kind of self-deception. Seneca wrote extensively about the concept of benefits and favors, and he pointed out that true generosity depends entirely on the pure intention of the giver. If you give a gift or perform a service hoping to gain something in return, even if that something is just a positive opinion or a sense of validation, you have not given a gift at all. You have made a calculated investment, and you are acting like a covert loan shark collecting emotional debt. Think about the last time you went out of your way to accommodate someone. Maybe you spent $50 treating a notoriously difficult coworker to lunch. Or you gave up your entire Saturday to help a friend move out of their apartment when you desperately needed to rest. Now, ask yourself with absolute, unflinching honesty when they did not return the favor a month later, or when they did not praise your sacrifice enough to the rest of your social circle. Did you feel a bitter spike of resentment? Did you complain to someone else about how unappreciated you are? If you felt even a trace of that anger, you just exposed your own lie. You did not help them out of genuine goodness. You helped them because you wanted to put them in your debt. You were trying to manipulate their perception of you so they would be obligated to treat you well in the future. Epictetus taught that we must strip away these false, comforting narratives we tell ourselves. When you act as a boundaryless doormat, you are actually operating from a place of deep selfishness and fear. You are trying to control how other people feel about you, which, as we have already established, is a direct violation of the dichotomy of control. You are invading their mental space, trying to dictate their opinions by overwhelming them with unrequested favors and sacrifices. This is exactly why your relationships feel so incredibly heavy and draining. You are treating every single interaction like a covert business transaction where the terms and conditions were never spoken out loud. You are constantly keeping score. You remember every single favor, every compromised boundary, every time you bit your tongue to keep the peace. And you are waiting for the universe and the people around you to finally pay you back with the love and respect you think you have purchased. But the universe does not owe you anything for your cowardice. A true student of Stoic philosophy gives freely or does not give at all. When they choose to do a good deed, the noble act itself is the complete end of the transaction. They do not keep a ledger in their mind. If you want to stop feeling used and exhausted, you have to stop trying to use your fake kindness as a tool for manipulation. You must accept that you cannot buy genuine loyalty or respect. You can only earn those things by being a person of strong, unshakable character who stands firm in their own worth, without needing to constantly bribe the crowd for their applause. So how exactly do you build this fortress around your mind when you first decide to stop people-pleasing and start reclaiming your life? Your immediate instinct might be to swing wildly to the extreme opposite. You might think that to be strong, you must become aggressive, shutting people out and responding to every minor request with hostility and defensiveness. But the ancient philosophers warn us against this dangerous overcompensation. Setting an iron boundary does not require you to raise your voice, and it certainly does not require you to become a cold, unfeeling jerk. Marcus Aurelius, a man who interacted daily with the most demanding, deceitful, and difficult politicians in the entire Roman Empire, wrote a profound rule in his personal diary. He told himself to be tolerant with others and strict with himself. A true Stoic boundary is not a weapon you use to attack or punish someone else. It is a protective shield you use to guard your own moral integrity and finite energy. Let us return to that toxic relative who constantly demands your money. or the lazy coworker trying to dump their unfinished project onto your desk on a Friday afternoon. The weak, people-pleasing version of you would have either submitted resentfully or finally exploded in a dramatic fit of rage after years of biting your tongue. The Stoic version of you takes a completely different, infinitely more powerful approach. When the unreasonable request comes your way, you simply look at the person and deliver a calm, unshakable refusal. You do not offer a 10-minute, desperate apology. You do not invent elaborate, fake excuses about how incredibly busy your schedule is. You do not nervously ask for their permission to decline. You simply state your position with total clarity and zero hostility. You tell them that you are unable to lend the money, or that you will not be working this weekend, and then you stop talking. The silence that follows will feel agonizing at first, but you must endure it. The other person might become highly defensive. They might try to guilt-trip you, calling you selfish or loudly reminding you of a favor they did for you 5 years ago. This is the ultimate test of your newly forged philosophy. The untrained mind will immediately panic and start backpedaling to soothe the other person's discomfort. The Stoic mind remains deeply rooted in the present moment, observing the reaction without absorbing a single ounce of it. You must remember the core teaching that when someone is angry with you over a reasonable boundary, it is their own flawed judgment that is upsetting them, not your action. You can look at their frustration with genuine, quiet compassion, understanding that they are suffering from their own false expectations, but you do not budge a single inch. You do not absorb their emotional chaos into your nervous system. Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded himself that true strength does not consist in fits of anger, but in gentleness and calmness, because it takes profound, unshakable inner power to remain perfectly kind while someone else is losing their temper. You can tell your demanding relative that you love them, but the financial answer is still absolutely no. You can be perfectly polite and professional to your coworker, but you still pack up your belongings and walk out of the office at 5 o'clock. This is what it means to have boundaries of steel. They are completely impenetrable, but they are not covered in barbed wire. By refusing to engage in an emotional screaming match, and by refusing to offer pathetic apologies, you strip the other person of all their manipulative leverage. They are suddenly forced to deal with an immovable object. Over time, a miraculous psychological shift will occur in your daily relationships. People will stop treating you like a disposable doormat because you have finally stopped acting like one. They will realize that your time and energy are fiercely guarded resources, and as a direct result, they will begin to respect those resources. By establishing these firm Stoic boundaries, you are not isolating yourself from the world. You are actually training the world exactly how it is allowed to treat you. Now that you have established your boundaries of steel, you must prepare for the inevitable pushback, because the world is full of manipulators, energy vampires, and people who have grown completely accustomed to using you for their own benefit. When you suddenly stop playing the role of the compliant doormat, these individuals will not just quietly walk away. They will escalate. They will try to guilt-trip you. They will twist your words, and they will accuse you of being selfish. This brings us to a highly practical application of Stoic philosophy in your daily life. Specifically, how you navigate toxic environments and deal with those who actively try to exploit your kindness. The ancient Stoics were not naive dreamers living in isolated caves. They were senators, merchants, and emperors deeply embedded in the treacherous political landscape of the Roman Empire. They knew exactly how deceitful human beings could be. But instead of becoming cynical or consumed by hatred, they developed a psychological armor based on profound, objective observation. Epictetus taught a concept that is absolutely crucial for surviving a toxic workplace or a manipulative relationship. He stated that whenever someone does you wrong, you must immediately remind yourself that they are acting from their own flawed impression of what is right for them. They are suffering from what the Greeks called amathia, which is a fundamental ignorance of true moral goodness. Imagine a colleague who constantly tries to dump their paperwork on your desk at 4:30 on a Friday afternoon, or a friend who only calls when they need to borrow a couple of $100 or vent about their self-inflicted drama for 3 solid hours. When you finally say no to them, they might lash out and try to make you feel like a terrible person. The weak, people-pleasing mind takes this attack personally and agonizes over it for weeks. The Stoic mind, however, looks at the manipulator almost with a sense of clinical pity. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself every morning that he would encounter busybodies, ingrates, and manipulative people. But he recognized that they act this way because they genuinely do not know the difference between good and evil. They believe that getting you to do their work or funding their poor choices is a victory for them, completely unaware that their manipulative behavior is actually destroying their own character. When you understand this, you realize that their manipulation is not a reflection of your worth. It is a glaring reflection of their broken internal compass. You do not need to get furious. You do not need to seek revenge. And you absolutely do not need to explain your boundaries to them in a desperate plea for understanding. You simply observe their manipulative tactics the same way you would observe a toddler throwing a tantrum in a grocery store. It is noisy. It is unpleasant. But it is certainly not a threat to your internal fortress. Seneca advised that when we encounter these types of people, we must not let their chaotic behavior pull us down into the mud. You remain strictly professional at the office. You communicate clearly and concisely, and you document your own work, but you completely detach yourself from their emotional games. If a toxic friend threatens to end the relationship because you will no longer drive 30 miles across town to act as their unpaid therapist or their personal automated teller machine, you must have the courage to let them walk away. A relationship built entirely on what you can provide for someone else is not a friendship at all. It is a hostage situation. By applying this Stoic objectivity, you neutralize the emotional poison of the manipulator. You stop being a reactive pawn in their game and start operating with total autonomy. You remain perfectly polite, but entirely untouchable, proving that your kindness is reserved for those who respect it, while your boundaries remain impenetrable to those who try to exploit it. As you continue to enforce these boundaries of steel, you are going to inevitably collide with the ultimate, terrifying climax of your psychological journey. You must prepare yourself for the absolute certainty that you are going to be disliked. And, more importantly, you must learn to completely embrace it. This is the ultimate crucible of the recovering people-pleaser for your entire life. The thought of someone misunderstanding your intentions or whispering negative things about you behind your back was enough to keep you awake all night. But to step into your true power, you must completely invert this fear. You must realize that being deeply misunderstood by the crowd is often the exact price of admission for maintaining your moral integrity. The great Roman philosopher Seneca offered a piece of advice that strikes at the very heart of this fear, stating that if you want to be happy, and if you truly want to be a good man, then you must let yourself be despised. Think about the profound weight of that statement. He did not say you should merely tolerate being disliked. He said you must actively allow it to happen. When you stop handing out endless favors and start prioritizing your own peace of mind, the people who used to benefit from your weakness will label you as selfish. They will gossip about how you have changed for the worse. When this happens, your ingrained instinct will scream at you to explain yourself, to write long messages defending your character, and to win back their approval. You must resist this urge with every ounce of strength in your body. The Stoics practiced a powerful concept called amor fati, which translates to a love of one's fate. This means you do not just passively accept the uncomfortable situations in your life. You actively embrace them and love them as necessary fuel for your own growth. When a toxic friend abandons you because you finally said no, you do not grieve the loss. You apply amor fati, and you love the fact that the universe just cleared a manipulative person out of your life. You love the fact that your boundaries are successfully working like a filter, repelling the parasites and protecting your energy. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that what other people think of you is strictly their business, and it is entirely worthless to your own character. He understood that you cannot win the love of base, manipulative people without resorting to base, manipulative methods yourself. If you have to sacrifice your dignity, exhaust your body, and empty your bank account just to keep someone from speaking ill of you, then their good opinion is a poison that is slowly killing you. The greatest, most unshakable strength a human being can possess is the willingness to be completely villainized by the crowd, while quietly knowing that their own conscience is perfectly clean. You must learn to take a strange, quiet delight in an ill opinion that is well gotten. When they call you cold because you refuse to engage in their dramatic chaos, you must smile. When they call you arrogant because you will no longer tolerate their disrespect, you must stand taller. You are no longer living for their applause. You are living for the approval of your own inner citadel. You are finally valuing yourself upon your own conscience, and not upon the fragile, shifting opinions of a confused world. This is the very essence of freedom. You are no longer a hostage to the mood swings of your neighbors or the unreasonable demands of your colleagues. You have cut the puppet strings by daring to be disliked, and by loving the peace that comes from being entirely misunderstood by those who refuse to respect you. You elevate yourself above the chaotic noise of the crowd and become a true warrior of your own life. As we reach the final realization of this journey, you have a fundamental, life-altering choice to make about how you will live the rest of your days. You have spent years, perhaps even decades, trapped in a psychological prison built entirely by your own desperate need for external validation. You have sacrificed your weekends, your hard-earned dollars, and your own peace of mind on the altar of public opinion. Are you going to continue waking up every single morning, putting on a fake mask, and trading your finite hours on this earth for the cheap, worthless currency of being considered a nice guy? Are you going to keep loaning out your energy to people who would not cross a shallow puddle to help you if you were drowning? Or are you going to finally step into the arena and take absolute ownership of your inner citadel? The ancient Stoics did not write these profound truths just so you could feel a temporary surge of motivation. They recorded them so you could fundamentally reconstruct your character from the ground up. Marcus Aurelius left us with a brutally simple directive when he wrote that you should waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be, but to simply be one. Being a good man or a good woman has absolutely nothing to do with making everyone around you comfortable. It has everything to do with acting with justice, speaking the truth with unflinching courage, and maintaining your moral integrity even when the entire crowd turns against you. Tomorrow morning, when your alarm goes off, the world will immediately try to test your new boundaries. A lazy coworker will ask you to do their job for them. A toxic family member will demand an unreasonable favor. Your own deeply ingrained anxiety will scream at your nervous system to just say yes to avoid the agonizing awkwardness of conflict. When that moment comes, I want you to remember the ancient Stoic formula of persisting and resisting. Persist in your commitment to virtue, and fiercely resist the cowardly urge to buy their affection. Tell them no. Do not offer a pathetic, rambling apology. Do not invent a fake excuse about how your schedule is just completely packed. Look them directly in the eye. Deliver your polite refusal, and let the silence hang heavy in the air. Let them be disappointed. Let them completely misunderstand your motives. Let them walk away if that is what they choose to do. Every single time you hold your ground and endure that uncomfortable silence, you are laying another indestructible brick in the fortress of your mind. Stop equating your spinelessness with morality. True kindness requires immense power. It is the power to give freely without keeping a secret mental ledger, and the profound ability to withhold your energy from those who only seek to exploit it. You are not a secondary character in a tragedy written by manipulative people. You are the sole author of your own judgments and the absolute master of your own will. Your life is ticking away, second by second, and you do not have the luxury of wasting another hour trying to manage the unmanageable emotions of others. The heavy exhaustion you feel right now is simply the burden of living a lie. Drop it immediately. You cannot control whether the world praises you or despises you, but you have absolute, unquestionable control over whether you respect yourself. Do not be a weak, accommodating doormat for a demanding world. Become a fierce, unshakable warrior of your own mind, and finally claim the profound, quiet freedom that has been waiting for you all along. If this video opened your eyes to the trap of people-pleasing and the true power of Stoic kindness, do not let this realization fade away. Take action right now. Hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell to join a community of individuals dedicated to building an impenetrable inner citadel. I want to hear from you in the comments. So tell me about one specific boundary you are going to enforce today. Your story might be the exact inspiration someone else needs to finally reclaim their freedom. Remember, true strength is a daily practice. Guard your finite time fiercely. Never apologize for respecting yourself. And I will see you in the next video.